All right. Good afternoon, Shaggy SoCal with Tour for Forza. And before I start doing track guide stuff for next week's races, I do, again, I primarily do these guides and live streaming through Twitch, but then I do, highlight them and upload them to YouTube just, for kicks and giggles. But occasionally I do read the comments, and a request came in from Crazy Bastard 85, BASTID. He's like, hey man, what's your wheel side settings and your Forza settings? So it's been a while. I know I've probably gone through them. It's one of the previous videos, but I never really made a dedicated one. So I figured it's good time now to do that. Mainly also if there's an update that does kind of reset things, at least I have something to go back off of. Because usually I'm one of those, once I get it set and it's comfortable, then I don't really think about it. So just to kind of go over like what am I running. So the wheel I'm running here is the Logitech G923. I've had it for about 2 years at this point. The little yellow, that yellow, and again when it comes out of the box it's like kind of a chrome blue. This yellow thing is literally just a felt, one of those Velcro cable ties, because I wanted something that was a little bit more visible, on stream, on camera, so that as I'm talking about track guides like that, you're actually seeing very easily how far the wheel is turning off center. So that's about 45, 90 degrees, I do have, again, it's just that G923. I did pick up it's just below the camera here, kind of their 6-speed gated gear shift. The only time I'm really using that is depending on the car that we're racing. If it is one that is kind of like an old school race car, like the 1956 Jaguar D-Type, I'll use the gear shift there. I'm not good enough yet to be comfortable using the clutch. I think that's going to be my next goal going over there. As far as next level learning, because it's a whole. I understand the concept of heel and toe. I just don't know that I'm graceful enough to do it. But let's get into actually the wheel settings themselves. I'll take mainly, again, gives me a good backup in case things get reset, but then I can kind of talk a little bit about why I've set them the way I have, and I will say by no means am I an expert on these settings. This is just done for me, what I think feels best for what I want out of the wheel. Use it as a guide, try it, make the adjustments based on what works best for you. So let's go ahead and go through that. So I'm going to skip kind of the early. I'll come back to the driving assists last on the gameplay and hub, but I'm mainly just going to keep going. Advanced controller. The funny thing is that's default. I'm looking at like, oh, advanced controller. Wait, I need to adjust those too. But let's go to the wheel. Okay, so wheel settings. I think this is pretty much. I've got custom wheel 5. I think the only tweak I've made is, and I hardly ever use it because the view I'm in, I've got the virtual mirror, is I just have the Y button kind of set to look straight back. So if I do need to look at what's behind me, I think there's been enough advancements as far as the proximity arrows that were in Forza 7 that have carried over here. So then they've got the little proximity radar, at least the first version of it. I don't know if they're going to tweak that at all. The wheel, it's now getting a bit easier to kind of see what's going on around you. But let's go to the advanced wheel. So steering access, dead zones, inside and outside, 0, 100. For me, I do like the, I want that wheel, the second I start turning it, I want it to be responsive. That's the inside dead zone. Then of course the outside is, I want to be able to turn it all the way, for whatever degree of rotation it's set at. The same thing for acceleration. So if the gas pedal, if I'm off it, no gas. If I'm 100% on it, full gas. Where I've differed a little bit is, for the braking, I do set it to 0 for the dead zone, but for the, so as soon as I start pushing the brake, it's going to start registering it. But for the outside, I've lowered it down to 93. And for me, it's always, I don't want to be in a place where I'm having to really, the nice thing is the G923 has got a good feel, like as you put more pressure in, it feels like a real gas pedal. It gets, it resists more the harder you push on it. But I'm trying to get it, I don't want to be, like having to jam full force on the brake pedal to get it to do anything. So I've kind of played with that a little bit. because I think in Forza without ABS, you know, the brakes will lock. I think it's still about 75% brake pressure somewhere in there. But that's why I would set it 93. The clutch, I think that's the default. So again, I don't use the clutch pedal a lot unless I have manual with clutch on with a race transmission and I stall the car, then I have to use the clutch. But I leave that alone. Same thing with the handbrake. I don't really use the handbrake. So now we get into the fun stuff. Vibration scale. So let's read. So vibration scale 40, I think I've turned that down slightly. Yeah, again, I don't remember what the defaults are from the beginning. I think that was probably set at 50. That might be the default. Force feedback scale, I think I've left those alone. Force feedback, steering self-alignment, mechanical trail slide, pneumatic trail slide. I think I've just let those all at the default. I think this one, road feel scale 70, I've just turned it down a little bit, I believe. And again, it's like I don't remember what the defaults are, so maybe that is the default. I just don't need. I want vibration feel in the wheel. I just don't need it like constantly rattling or like that. So load 7 sensitivity I left at 50. It's these three I've been, the last time I went through wheel settings that I really was farting around with. Wheel damping scale, again, sets the resistance to the movement of your steering wheel. For me, what I want ultimately out of the wheel when I'm turning and is weight. I don't want to have it so it's so difficult to turn, but I don't want it to be like, oh, it's just, I've used the really old spring-loaded, non-force feedback wheels. I don't need it to move that easily. I want a little bit of resistance and weight when I turn it, and also when I'm in the corner holding the wheel, that I feel the kind of that pushback of the wheel wanting to correct. And again, not so strong that I'm like struggling, but just enough where I can feel it. So right now it's set at 175. This is the one that I'm playing around with, the centering spring scale. That's really the one. When I started turning that up, it's like, okay, that's what I want. I want that as I'm holding, and I'll demonstrate it a little bit here on Hakone. That as I'm in the corner and holding the wheel through some of the longer corners, I want to feel the wheel trying to push back, of trying to correct. Not enough where I'm straining to hold it, but enough that I feel it. Dynamic damper behavior, I have that up to 100, though I'm kind of looking at that and like, maybe I have that a little bit too high. I don't know. I mean, that's where it's at right now. Steering sensitivity, steering linearity are set at 50, and I think those are the defaults. But the last thing is, again, recently Forza added TRUEFORCE to it. I did muck around with it a little bit, and maybe I need to go back and revisit some of this now that I understand a little bit better some of the settings above it. But when I first turned it on, the thing that I lost most with this wheel is just that, again, for me, it's the weight. I want a heavier feeling in the wheel. And with TRUEFORCE on with this G923, I just felt that I lost all of it. Plus, there's some of the other vibrations that I was used to feeling in the wheel that were either felt that they were way turned down or weren't there at all. So I've got it turned off. Maybe at some point down the line, I might re-experiment when I have time to actually sit and muck with wheel settings. It'd be one of those two. I'd be curious that, again, I'm on kind of like entry level, belt gear driven wheel from Logitech. I'm wondering maybe the TRUEFORCE is better, say maybe on their higher end wheels, or I think the direct drive stuff they have out now. I don't know. But that's the advanced wheel settings I'm running right now, subject to change at a moment's notice. But when we get into, go back over here a little bit, gameplay and HUD, I'll just take a quick run through here. So actually, maybe not. Yeah, I mean, this is just, personal preference of what I have where, but I do have proximity radar on. I tend to put it in center top because I like having that superimposed kind of within the line of sight. There are times though it'll be on and I'll be ignoring it because I'm looking past it. I don't use the proximity radar background. Decorative background, I leave that off. Proximity radar audio, I leave off. I had that on at one point, then it was like, no. And I have turned the proximity arrows off. I think between, I tended to be pretty good at being able to see what's going on behind me, and then just having the radar pop up when people get close, I think is works well enough for me. But when we get into accessibility, no, we can go back here to driving assists. So the last part of it, kind of going back, what do I run for driving assists? I have the suggested line off. I don't have ABS on. Unassisted throttle. Steering, I run it normal, and I think this is where, this is that combination of, again, with the wheel itself is set that as soon as I start turning it, it should be telling Forza, hey, start turning. I know, at least my basic understanding, just from more experience, is, the difference between normal and simulation is, well, let's say normal says full, but dampers certain physical effects to make driving easier is normal. The way I always figured normal compared to sim is normal, the car seems to just, when you start turning, it's a little slow off center, and then it speeds up as it goes to wherever you're going to. For the controller, it's like if I go right, it'll be a little slow off center and it will accelerate to then get to full lock. Whereas sim seems to be as soon as you hit the stick to let's say to the right, it's center to full lock as quickly as that stick goes. So you get, on controller, I can talk about more controller because I played around with it there, is that what you gain with the sim steering is the car is just a little more pointy on turn in, it's a little more responsive, but but it's very easy to then kind of get a twitcher like that and then get into a tank slapper because it's so linear. Normal, again, it's a little slower off center, so the car is going to feel a little more wallowy when you first turn, but what it does give you the advantage of doing is if the back starts to step out or you twitch a little bit, you can, flick the stick, throw in some counter steering and do the same thing with the wheel. And, it's kind of helps keep the car from snapping. So I've left it for the wheel. I've left it on normal. Allow me to steering into pit. Yep. No TC, no stability control. That I usually set depending on the car. Sometimes you get to the higher end cars or the ones that the rear tires spin up, and it snaps loose in an instant. You might turn on, I might turn on TC, usually sport on that option. Stability control, I hardly ever, if ever, use. Shifting, manual, manual with clutch. If you're in a race transmission and put it in manual with clutch, I don't know how big of a difference that makes anymore. Where the race trans, it's maybe a smidgen quicker, but I haven't noticed it. Pit entry, reset to track, context sensitive. Track limits I have off. I used to run them on with the proximity markers. So I used to do it that way so that I would only see it if I were getting close, but kind of one of my challenges is I wanted to up the difficulty is to actually turn those off completely. Because this Forza track limits make a lot more sense. They're more closer to what you would expect in real life. And that's it for what I do on the controller, the control and wheel settings. But let's go ahead and close this for a second. And what I want to go out here and do is just get out here in the, because I'm going to be doing a track guide here at Hakone GP shortly. But to kind of run a lap or two with the current settings, just so I can kind of talk about what I'm feeling here. I think for this car, this track, getting into these longer corners, again, I'm going to turn in, I'm going to feel the weight there. The other thing too is you'll feel like as the tires start to kind of reach the edge of their grip, I feel a little subtle vibration in the wheel. And that just kind of helps. If I can't hear the wheels, if I can't hear the tires chattering through the audio, maybe there's too much cross traffic on our game chat or Discord chat going on, I can feel that little subtle vibration in the wheel. I'm sure if I was on sim steering there that would that might be a tank slapper already. I can keep it in third there. So yeah, it's just really about feel and just having that little bit of weight. I want that little bit of resistance. Now I have not tried this yet, but so yeah, I think because the higher centering spring are like that, it will. You'll see me sometimes, depending on like if I'm balancing the car through the corner and need to, kind of do a little counter steering. Sometimes coming out, you'll see I'll do a little bit of this because I'm trying to work with that centering spring that wants to bring the car wheel back to the center, and I can kind of work with that, so I don't have to really turn the wheel back to center. I can just loosen my, as I open the wheel up, I don't have to actually try and turn it. I can just let the wheel just want to go back to center. So that's what I run, for better for worse. Again, wheel settings, as I try to search for a gear, much like trying to tune a car in a game to get it the way you want, the wheel settings is based off what works for you, and what you want out of it. Ooh, that was a downshift too early because I can't talk and drive at the same time. But that is what I run currently in Forza Motorsport 2023 on my Logitech G923 wheel. So with that, I want to take a quick break, and I've got other track guides to make here for this next series of races. So I hope you guys are having a good weekend. Happy racing.